my fans, they gave me this here since I've had it mentioned since 1936. It's handmade, you know, today you can buy them, I guess, by machine, but this is a Mexican shawl. And then they gave me a mink coat, and I got Muzio's opera scores. I have a lot of her opera scores. I had her, a lot of the things from Tosca, like her fans and things.
Yeah.
But May gave me much of what Muzio had. And Muzio had been married
To Scotto,
yeah.
the impresario. No, her husband was, that was her lover, was Scotto.
Scotto was her lover.
Yeah.
And then this little shrimp that she married, I
Yeah.
understand, May hated it.
Yeah.
And May said that he took everything away from her.
Yeah.
He took all of her jewels, took everything. She died absolutely poor, you know, she
Yeah.
was broke. And May paid her debts for maybe 20 years.
You're kidding.
May Higgins paid all of that woman's
And
debts.
what was May's source of income?
May was
after she had left
May started as she started in the package room of Sears when she was a 14 or 15 years old. This woman, remarkable woman. She became buyer, assistant buyer. She became a big wheel in Sears. One of the biggest buyers Sears ever had for the mail order and everything. She left everything to go with Muzio. She traveled all over the world with Muzio. She went to Europe. May used to go to Italy like you and I go to New York.
Yeah.
She went all over the world with
South
her.
America. And,
Everywhere. She knew her. She was her whole life. And so then when Muzio died, she came back to Sears and they gave her back her job in Chicago. That's when she got in touch with me. Well, she became like my thing. She took all my scrapbooks. That's why I wish I could find them, because she pasted all my stuff and
organized them.
Organized them. The only thing was that she was very possessive. And of course I had my mother and my father and my sister. But she became a member of the family, and when my sister married, and then my sister has 2 children, my niece Barbara became like her child. May just took her, practically possessed her. My niece is a very big, important executive with Sears International. She's a gorgeous girl, and grew up, you know, with music all around her all of her life, and of course her brother did too. But May was probably one of the best friends I've ever had in my life. She died in her late 90s. She was in her 90s. Now this woman, I don't know what made her go. She could drink anybody under the table. She could eat anybody under the table, and yet have the energy to get up, and she was a very religious woman.
Yeah.
She would go to church in the morning very early. She'd go to 5 o'clock Mass or 6 o'clock. She was Catholic, Irish, came from a very Irish family in Chicago. And Muzio was, of course, relied upon her. She was her whole life. And as I say, when she died, May took all of the bills that she owed, debts that she had, and
assumed them.
And assumed her debts. I said,
then
you know, I
paid them off
couldn't
over a period of
understand
time.
that. I said to her, she says, well, because she loved her so much. And
wanted to keep her good name.
She wanted to keep her good name. And then she was instrumental in having these 2 guys, I don't know who they were, in Chicago. She gave them all kind of memorabilia,
I know,
all the records and everything, and then they reproduced him and everything. And
Andy Karzis, does that name
I guess
you? Because I know Andy.
Yeah, I guess that's the one. I don't know, because
he's an advertising executive.
She became
had a radio program.
Yeah. And so she was. Go on, Cham. Go sit down. And she was absolutely. This was her whole life. And the only thing that I began to feel later on was that I didn't want to be in Muzio's shadow. I was my own person. And she would say to me, really very funny, because she was at our house all the time. She was eating at our house all the time. Auntie May, we call her Mayna. We just call her Auntie May. And she would say, well, you don't act like a prima donna. You should wear negligees and lounging robes and stuff like that. Well,
That's not you.
I'm not me. And I said, look, see, because when Muzio grew into this business and Raisa, that was a different time. They were all the prima donnas, and they had they were mistresses to somebody, and they were being supported by somebody. And I didn't grow up like that. I grew up doing my own thing, supporting myself, being my own person all the time, and I couldn't see myself being. I said, to me, that was very phony. And I think it is kind of phony in a way, because
Yeah.
a lot of the artists, if you notice, some of them even today, I mean, they put on such airs, and they, oh, I could name some, I won't name
Yeah.
them, but they're really funny to me. I find them very comical. But they also are women who are very opportunistic, who always looked at the guy's pocketbook, and they look to see how much money he's got,
Yeah.
and then that you know,
That-
kind of
that-
influences
yeah.
their love. And see, and I was never like that.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I was always lucky enough to earn my own money. I always did my own thing. I never had to depend on anybody, which in many ways has been bad too, because you become very self-reliant, and you become a survivor, and you think for yourself. You see, I'm very practical and very realistic, and maybe that's why I didn't push myself like a lot of other singers did. I could name some singers that got into the Met who got there through one bed after the other. I know.
Sure.
And then they got paid. They paid. You know, the Met was paid so much money because they had these lovers. They had husbands too, but that
Yeah.
didn't matter, because I mean it was all part of it. You know, I
think
have to
we-
live with myself.
I think we know some of the names.
Of course. But I feel that I've always had to live with myself. I have to look at myself in the mirror. I want to be able to get up and look at anybody. The woman who sponsored me told me something when I was very young. She was a gorgeous woman, let me tell you. She was exquisite, this Jewish woman.
What was
She
her
looked
name?
like her name is Helen Coben, K-O-B-I-N.
Yeah.
She looked like a queen, a duchess. She was so regal. I mean, she was so elegant. And this woman was absolutely gorgeous. She used to say to me, Vivian, be sure that your relationship with people, your relationships are such that you can always go back into the room or into the wherever you are and come back with friends. In other words, that you don't have to be ashamed that you did anything to be ashamed of. You know, there's a very vulgar expression for that, which I will not.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
where you eat. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
And I always remembered that. See, I remembered that as a very young girl, very impressionistic. Even with Leslie Atlas, whom I told you said the Plenty of Good Timber in the Woods.
Yeah.
He said to me once, he says, you know something, Vivian, you will always be your own best salesman. Because he says, when people talk to you, your personality wins them over right away. He says, that will be your gift. He says, you don't have to sleep with anyone. This is what he told
Yeah.
me. You will never have to compromise yourself. I remember having lunch with this man, this very wise man. He says, you will never have to compromise yourself. You'll never have to say, well, I've got to do this to get that, because you have talent and personality. He says, and always remember that, and I always did. I said, by golly, I'm not going to sell myself for anything. I mean, there's nothing that's worth it to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm such a probably spiritual person inside, and I have the fear of God. I always think that He's looking at
Yeah.
and that He sees everything that you do, and you're not kidding Him.
No, He
sees. And I feel that I have lived my life that way, and frankly, I think that He's always looked after me. Believe me, I could tell you parts of my life that were so traumatic, but somehow I've always survived, and I feel that I'm at peace with myself.
While you were fixing the little lunch there, your husband took me into the your studio, and I noticed on the wall all these photographs. He said you had a talk show on television.
I had.
Is that where you were television?
Television. Well, see, I've had such a varied career.
I know you had the operatic phase early.
Yeah, and then the radio, and then I did musical. I mean, did acting, and like with Bill Bendix and stuff like that. I mean, stage acting, and I could have done motion pictures too. Cecil DeMille wanted me to do a movie with him. When he saw me at Paramount Studios one day, he said that he thought I'd be very photogenic, and then I would be very. He thought I could be, he says you should be in pictures, and he said I'd like to do a screen test. I never was able to get those things done because I was always doing something else, and my schedules always worked out wrong. I don't know, like they did during the war.
But what was this TV talk show? This was
well.
He said Cincinnati or Chicago.
Well, I started at ABC in Chicago. You know, the morning show they have now in New York originated. The first format was at ABC in Chicago. And so I was doing supper clubs at the time, and one of the agents from the William Morris office whom I was with the William Morris office, came down to St. Louis where I was singing at the Chase, and he said, did you ever think of doing a talk show, Vivian? He said,
Yeah.
I think you'd be very good, he says, on a talk show, he says, because you have the
personality.
Yeah, he says, you have the gift of gab. He says, you seem to be able to, your words flow. I said, I don't think so, I said, because I've been interviewed. I said, but I don't think I could ever interview anybody. I said, that would scare me to death. He says, no, I don't think so. He says, I have a feeling, he says, that you would be very good on television. Well, I had done TV before, and I knew I photographed well. And so he said, there's a man named Jim Conway who has a show in Chicago, the morning show at ABC, and he said he's kind of, you know, low-key and kind of bland and colorless.
Yeah.
He said, and he needs
a shot in the arm.
Yeah, a shot in the arm. He's somebody that's got this kind of personality.
Pizzazz.
And I think that you're going to be the one that's going to be the perfect catalyst for him. So I said, fine. So I went to Chicago. They liked me. They signed me up, and I was there. My goodness, I went on the air with him, and I had never done this kind of work. We would do 2 hours every morning. We used to do interviewed everybody.
Well, I saw you had Eisenhower and.
Oh, I have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, after that show, Cincinnati saw me, Abco Corporation, and they invited me down to do my own show. So I had my own show called Vivian. Then I had that talk show, and all those people were on my show. All those people. I had a 90-minute daily talk, sing, interview show. I would do the commercials. I did the singing. I did the everything. I did everything on the show, and interviewing.
I mean, but for an hour and a half, I mean, where does one get the amount of energy and the mental ability to sort of focus? Because
it was hard work. All you did was get up. Well, when I did the Chicago show, I used to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning and be on the set by 7. And by 9 we were finished. Then they'd send me out with a camera crew to do all kinds of things. By the way, this Oprah Winfrey's director was my director.
No kidding.
Jim McFarland, and he used to say, "Don't tell Vivian why she's funny. Just turn her out, let her go." He says, and they fall down laughing because I don't know what I was doing.
Have you ever thought of getting in contact with Oprah Winfrey?
No, but I'd like to call Jim McFarland because he thought I was the funniest girl. He says, Amy, and Dick O'Leary, who is now head of ABC in New York, used to say, anytime she's free, put her on. She's got more charisma on camera. He said to me once, you've got more charisma on camera than any woman I know, because you have to be yourself. Yeah. See, the camera doesn't lie. Yeah. If you're phony, you know,
it picks it up right away.
Right away. See, and I was off the wall sometimes because I would talk about different things. I mean, I had the insurance companies down my neck because I was very honest. Matter of fact, they told me I was too honest. They said, sometimes you shouldn't speak your mind. You shouldn't.
Donahue replaced him.
Phil Donahue replaced me.
He was, oh, well.
He replaced me. He was in Dayton at the time. He wasn't anybody at the time.
Yeah.
And I was in Cincinnati. And Phil came on my show once, and we had him sing on the show. He was so bashful in those days. He wasn't the Phil Donahue that he is now.
Well, everybody evolves.
Oh, right. He's gotten so macho now. Before he was so bashful and timid, and he would just have somebody on who wrote a book. That was his format. That was all. It was cheap.
Yeah.
See, it wasn't cost money. Whereas I had an orchestra. I had 7 men. That cost money. You know, I mean, my show was very expensive.
What kind of if you did some singing on the show?
Oh yeah, I sang.
What would you sing? Pop
I would
songs
sing
or
all the
ballads or
everything.
Yeah.
You know, ballads and the song.
Once in a while, did you show them a little of your opera stuff?
Yeah, I would. Sometimes I would do something with the high notes in it and something like that. You know, I would sing something that went up in the upper register. But when I worked with Gordon Jenkins and made records with him, he says, you know, that's the cash register, Vivian. You've got that low, real big, fat, lower voice in your chest. He said, stay down in the cash register. He told me that once.
And you said, right, you just said the high notes are what you keep in your pocket.
You keep in your pocket. She said, you got to have them in your pocket. She'd say, you have to have those high notes in your pocket. And he'd say, the low notes are where the cash register is. So you get two different.
She has some popular stuff. Cole Porter with Robert Merrill.
Yeah, I've never seen
these. These are pop things. You know.
Yeah.
You know, these are cutouts. These are out of print.
Yeah, they all are. Yeah, you'd have to.
See, so you
have
did So in Love, Begin to Begin.
No, I could have him tape those all for me.
Berlin.
I have a couple more that I can't find, and then I wish I could find the ones with Alfred Wallenstein and all those. I wish I could track those down.
There's another. This was your last one.
It was my last one. I did that with a man named Lubunsky, and his uncle was.
Ed
Lubunsky.
Ed Lubunsky. You must know his.
No. But I'm just reading it right here on the record.
His father's a composer. His father was, and then one of his cousins was in I think the news division of NBC or something, Labunsky. He's a very, very talented, crazy guy. You know, Desperate Measures, he calls it.
Where is that
Toscanini?
Brahms?
Oh, I've got it. I don't want to play it. You mean the one I'd sang?
So, what you said that all these acetates from the Hollywood Bowl and
oh, these are all tapes.
Yeah, yeah.
They were taken off the air.
Yeah.
And the man who took them off the air was the man who had charge of the Standard Oil broadcast on the West Coast. You know, that was a program that was on the air for about 25 years.
So this is basically material from the 40s.
From the 40s through the 50s, 40 through 55, about 50. I've got recordings there of all the different time, 43, 44, 40. He's got them all done chronologically. You hear my voice; it's really amazing how the voice kept getting richer.
Well, this guy sent, what's his name, Michaelis?
Michaelis, he's the one that had charge of these.
This was done, this was what? Just
recently.
A few months ago.
Just recently? Oh.
Yeah, recently. And he dug this up. Look at this.
That's incredible.
There's Ezio Pinza here, too. Ezio Pinza and Vivian here.
Yeah,
and Bruno Landi.
Let's see, this is the Standard Hour. Soloists included Ezio Pinza, second from left, and Vivian Della Chiesa.
Mm-hmm.
1948.
And there's a picture of Vivian there.
With Arthur Fiedler.
With Arthur Fiedler.
Yeah, oh my God, he looks so young here.
Oh, yeah. Then I did operas, you know, on film. Beautiful operas, television operas. They spent a fortune. I did Hernani, Involami. I did one with Cavalleria Rusticana, and then I did Carmen. I did 3 different separate ones. Alfred's never seen them, and I'm having someone fix them all now so that I can play them.
Marvelous.
And then you'll come back. You've got to come back.
Oh,
You're going to come back. I'm going to have you.
Gigi. When you stop it, you know, he goes to her thing and he's always hungry. She caught him eating her food. You know what's interesting? Now here's something from New Yorker. You can recognize.
Sure, they're cartoons.
It's a short story by John O'Hara.
Yeah.
And look what he did during the story.
Oh my God.
He mentions me. He writes a story.
She cited and lit a cigarette, humming no longer, leaving the singing to Vivian Della Chiesa, who was in a radio studio. Appreciated, probably wearing a beautiful evening gown, earning $2,000 a week, soon going to a champagne supper on Park Avenue, where she would mingle with others who were the famed on stage, screen, and radio. What year was this?
John O'Hara. I don't remember. I can't remember.
He used to contribute, he was like a contributor editor to New York Magazine, the short stories.
So what this means is that you were part of the culture of the day.
Of the culture of the day.
So
I was part of the culture
that kind of reference wouldn't throw somebody.
Remember, he wrote Pal Joey.
Sure.
What a writer he was. I got to know, you know, we corresponded many times and afterwards, but you know, I have to search my memory for a lot of things that have happened to me, but that I in many ways have kind of forgotten. I don't know.
If I don't dig up these things, she wants to forget her past. She doesn't.
You see,
doesn't even want to have records played or anything.
No, I mean, I'm very much. I don't know.
Well, I think you know.
I don't live in the past.
I know. But let me tell you something. I've been trying to run down people, you know, connected with the old Chicago Opera, and I wrote a letter to you about 1.5 years ago, and I didn't have an address, and I sent it to the American Guild of Musical Artists because they keep a registry of all.
I think they lost track of me too.
Well, anyhow, I never got it back, and you never got it.
No.
But when I saw that article in the Times a couple months ago with that Toscanini thing, I immediately got to work. I read the article carefully. They mentioned somebody's name from Ovation Magazine who was involved with that.
Yeah.
And so I called Ovation Magazine. I got a hold of him, the publisher, and he said, "Well, I didn't have that much to do with it. It was a Mr. Rosen or something."
Rosen.
So he gave me Mr. Rosen's number. Well, actually, Mr. Rosen was out, and he got back to me. And of course, they won't give you a phone number.
That's right.
Because it's unethical. So, but he said that he would.
Relay the
message. No, he gave me your address so that I could write to you.
Yes.
But I called information, you know, and I asked for at this address. They gave me a phone number.
Yeah. I used to be enlisted. Yeah. I was enlisted until about 3 years ago.
So
after I married Alfred, I became enlisted. We've only been married not twice. We haven't been married 3 years yet.
But the name was under Della Chiesa, although they may have gotten it from the address. I forget whether they got it from your.
Probably.
Because what they do when you call information now is they have these people who sit at a computer,
and they just go.
And if the name doesn't come up with a number, then they put the address in, and they come up with something.
And they say...
They gave me a phone number. I called, and there you were.
There I was. Isn't that interesting?
And And then, of course, I sent you the photograph, which you...
Well, did you ever think, she's in the World Almanac.
Yeah, I'm in the World Almanac
She's in the
also.
World
The
Almanac.
World Hour, who's who?
World Almanac.
World
I'm in it every year. They always-
No, on the
World Almanac is usually a
Noted
collection of record.
personality.
No.
Oh, just as a famous...
Is that information plate? No.
No, they have a
Famous
whole
people.
column
Famous
of
people.
all the artists
Yes.
And I'm in that. I've
who are
been in it.
active, and also, and then they also have the deceased.
Yeah.
They put you on
okay.
another list.
Yeah, but that's for people like Sarah Bernhardt and Nellie Melba.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right. That's right. To put those people on that.
And they give you the name, VIVIAN DELLA CHIESA, born Chicago, Illinois,
Yeah.
and the date.
Mm-hmm.
They have a birth date.
Well, of course, I've checked you out, and you wouldn't know about this book, I'm sure. There's a dictionary. It's published in Europe called, it has like 6,000 entries of all people who've ever sung opera over the years, whether they made records or not. And they have a listing for you because,
Mhm.
you know, with a little synopsis of your operatic career,
Mm-hmm.
the date that you were born, who you studied with, and
Mhm.
you know, I guess they got that information from materials from the period.
I guess so.
And well, of course, you are recorded with the Toscanini thing. So
Yeah.
at one time, it was a much smaller book, and it was just people who had made records. Now it's been expanded.
Isn't that something I never
Well,
knew about that
we
one?
attended a convention just a year ago, last year.
Yeah, I got.
And
They gave me
presented
this
her.
award.
She was a guest of honor at the Friends of Old Time Radio.
They gave me an award.
They gave her an award.
It's one of the.
We
You know
spent
that
the weekend.
I was once voted the most popular singer on radio many years
This
ago.
was just a
Oh
year
my
ago.
God, this isn't.
Yeah, this is
beautiful.
isn't that beautiful? And I was when I was a member of AFTRA, before it was AFTRA, they voted me I had a
What hotel
I used
was
it
this?
as a doorstop.
There was a hotel in Newark. What was it? In Newark, New Jersey.
Newark, New Jersey.
In a
it was-
hotel.
Yeah.
And they had this convention, and when we walked in, they had.
Those are some records, but these are some of my scores,
And
my
you say
opera
some of these are
scores.
Muzio scores.
Yeah, some of these were Muzios, and some of them are mine. Most of them are mine, but quite a few of them were Muzios also. And these are all the operas that I sang in different, you know.
Oh my God, some beautiful things.
La Juive. See, here's La Juive.
Oh yes.
Isn't that funny? That we should have that there. This is James and
Brown.
Brown Tuthill. I don't know how in the world I got that. Probably someone gave it to me or something. Holiday. La Juive.
Yeah.
And I probably learned it from this. I can't even remember anymore, you know. Well, some name, what's in there? I don't even know what's in here. Little note, God
little
knows.
piece of paper. What it is.
Oh, it's just nothing. It's just some a phone number, I think, of someone at one time. But
These are lovely.
aren't they? See, they're all. Now, May Higgins had these all done for me. This Muzio's,
Yeah.
she had these all done for me. She
Leather
had
bound.
them done. Leather bound. They're very
Oh,
old
they're
now.
beautiful. Yes.
But they're so old. Some of them are so, you know, I've used them like Tosca, which I sang a lot. Here's La Forza del Destino, and this is my Tosca. Look I've worn it out.
Yeah.
I studied that with Toscanini, you know. He
Did you ever do La Mori di
Yes, I
Tre Re
did.
on the stage?
Yes.
You
I did
remember-
that, and I did
Well, where?
Montemanzi's, I did in Philadelphia. As a matter of fact, Beverly Sills sang in one time. That's how she writes about me in her book all the time.
Oh, that's right. Because
Twice she's
she
written.
replaced you.
Yeah,
In La
I was
Mori di
ill
Tre
in
Re.
the 50s.
Right.
And then I had, I did Montemanzi's L'Incantesimo, which was, I premiered, world premiered with Alexander Svade.
Oh.
The two of us sang
That
that,
was
together.
He had a tremendous
And
voice.
Lazzari, Virgilio Lazzari.
Oh, great singer.
Oh, yeah.
Colossal artist.
I mean, I sang with some very fantastic singers in my life, and, you know, I don't even think about it anymore. I don't know why.
I
But
see you have a score of Boito's Nerone.
Nerone.
You know, Raiza created Nerone in 1924.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, with Pertile.
Here's Manon,
Pinza.
another Manon Massenet. This one, Nerone. I have a
Norma.
collection here. Norma. What is this?
You never did, you
Samson
just
and
sang the
Dalila.
Costa Diva. You didn't
The
do
Costa Diva, yeah. Natoma.
What happened to that book about?
Who knows
where
what Julian-
you're in that book about radio.
Oh yeah, the radio days. It's I don't know. Or maybe it's here. I don't know. They write about me a whole.
Did we give it
Oh,
to
you
Eileen?
gave that to Eileen. You should have
some
got.
young lady
She
who was
never.
writing about
Some
it.
girl's writing a whole story on me. I don't know what she's doing. She's at NYU, and she followed me
We
around.
have a videotape here, you know, of a Milton Berle show with Vivian.
You know what I have? They wrote me up. They said if they had been giving Oscars
Yeah.
and a whole thing is written up on me that I would probably have gotten an Oscar as one of the most, one of the greatest singers on radio at the time. I mean, they write quite a few chapters on me, about me in that book. It's called the Great Music Box, the Great something Music Box, Great American Music. And this man who wrote the book, they played some of my records that I had never heard, and then they had this big room full of people, and I was talking to them, and they asked me questions. Of course, and there were a couple of other people who had been famous in radio also. They were actors and producers and directors.
Did you do a fair amount of operetta? In other words,
not too much.
There used to be a couple probably the rare I forget what they're called.
Railroad Hour.
Yeah, they did like hour versions.
Gordon McRae.
Yeah, I know Eileen Farrell and Dorothy Kirsten and people like that.
Yeah, I did that.
And I would have thought you.
Carmen Dragon was the conductor, and Carmen and I were very close friends. Carmen was a very good friend of mine. Matter of fact, he was part of the Standard Oil business here. He used to do the Standard School broadcasts. They had very educational broadcasts that Standard Oil sponsored. Carmen had been a big writer for MGM, you know, for music. He earned tons of money doing that. And his son is Captain and Tennille. Daryl, I knew Daryl when he was a kid. He had 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. And when he did these, you know, these MGM things, and then Mike, the man, Adrian Michaelis, hired him to become a conductor. He was just really becoming a symphony conductor. He was very, you know, he was a neophyte then. But he worked his way in. He was a very studious type man, and he did a lot of the broadcasts with me on that. And of course, the Railroad Hour was his baby, and with Gordon McRae, when Gordon was really becoming a big name, you know, at the time.
In the 40s, an awful lot of classical singers, classically trained singers, had 15-minute, half-hour radio programs.
Correct.
A lot of people
did, yeah.
And of course, you had
I had a lot more than most of them because I had 3 of them on the air at one time.
Now, how could you were these things rehearsed, or did you?
Yes, we did a lot of rehearsing. We, oh sure, we would for my Sunday show, the American Album, we would meet on Friday, pick our material. Frank Munn, Gene Dickinson, you remember Gene Dickinson?
Oh yeah,
and Gus Henshin, and we would pick the music that we were going to do on Sunday. Then we would rehearse on Sunday, and then we would rehearse again on Monday again for the next week. We would rehearse Monday and Friday. We'd have to be rehearsing for the next Sunday, and of course then our rehearsal started at 6 o'clock, and we went on the air at 9:30. So we rehearsed about 3.5 hours, and they had 48-piece orchestras. They didn't have little teensy-weensy. They had big orchestras.
But there were so many people who had shows.
Well, the only ones at that time was the only one. Bob Merrill had a show for a while.
Didn't Patrice Mansell have a show? And didn't Alba Stieber have a show? And
no, they were on the Firestone. They used to just do guest appearances. Then I got the La Rosa program with Antonini, and they used my theme song that had been written for me. Actually, he asked permission if he could use my theme song, which was called One Magic Hour, a beautiful song. And Les Santley had published that, and it was written by Billy Mills, who used to be with Fibber McGee and Molly, and you know, in Chicago, and that's where I started at CBS. And Billy Mills was the orchestra leader there. And so when they asked, Antonini asked me if I could, you know, if he could use my song, I said sure. And then Albanese came in to sing. My manager was Mike DePace, who became Bob Merrill's manager, Mario Lanza's manager. Mario used to sit in the office and wait for crumbs from every, you know, he didn't have anything. He was poor as a church mouse, big fat guy with a big dirty clothes. I mean, he really looked, he really needed help, you know. And Mike took him to Rosati to study.
Oh, Geely's alleged teacher.
Yeah, and Rosati gave up on him because he couldn't teach him. See, now Bob Merrill talks about him, but I don't think Bob knows as much about him as I do. Because, I mean, Mike used to tell me, he says, I gave up on Lanza teaching it because he said he just doesn't seem to learn. Well, I knew Mario very well. So, but anyway, so Mike was my manager, and before I knew it, he had never done anything in radio. But there you go again, managers. I was his contact, and I opened doors for my manager in radio.
Yeah.
Before you know it, everybody was coming.
You had all the contacts.
I had all the contacts. So Albanese comes to him. They all come to him. Then of course, then before you know it, he puts Albanese on the program too with me. Also, you know, he didn't care. The managers don't care. Instead of just working like Ted Collins did with Kate Smith, that was it. He didn't let anybody come into his way. But managers are all looking at him to make a fast buck. Let's face it, they all want to make money. So he brought Albanese in, and then I don't remember Francesco Valentino.
Oh sure, he was in my first Aida.
Yeah,
he was in my first Amanazzo.
Yeah, and I sang with him too. I
sure.
did a lot of singing with him too. I just remembered his
You
name.
must have had a lot of in the earlier period, when you did a lot of opera. In addition to those, winter kind of dates, you must have done a lot of summer opera, like Cincinnati.
Yes, I did summer opera all the
time. And did you do the outdoor circuit, like Hollywood Bowl,
yes.
Watergate?
Yes, I didn't do the Watergate, but I did the Hollywood Bowl, and I used to go up to Canada, Vancouver. They had wonderful.
How about Chicago?
Chicago, Grand Park.
Grand Park. Yes.
I broke the encore record there one year.
No kidding.
In Grand Park. Grand Park, I sang in a lot of the places, like California had a lot of open-air theaters, too, besides the Hollywood Bowl. They had the Redlands.
The Redlands, that's in Colorado.
No, the Redlands Auditorium down in Redlands, California.
Mm-hmm.
They had that one, of course, in Colorado. I sang everywhere. If I were to try to remember all the places.
Did you ever do vaudeville?
Yes, my first year in radio, I did the Chicago Theater, 6 shows a day. Balaban and Katz.
Yeah.
And then I did some other theaters. They had me booked to different theaters, and that was hard work. 6 shows a day. 5 and 6 shows.
Did you ever get hooked up with that concert circuit? Not community concerts, but like who was that woman in Chicago? Bertha Ott or Dima
Bertha Ott. Dima
Harshbarger
I knew.
And didn't they have a series of a lot of artists? They would tour the Midwest,
yes,
high school auditoriums and that sort of thing?
No, I didn't do that.
You didn't do that?
No,
so
because I was on the radio. I was spared that. But Dima Harshbarger became head of Hopper's manager,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, absolutely. And when I went to the coast...
Because Cole Glade spoke very ill of her, thought that she was Cole thought she was exploited because they had her sing like 100 times a year in high school auditoriums, going around...
well, see, I think I was
lucky. I think they got peanuts for it.
Yeah, I think they probably did. I was lucky because having been in radio, I was reaching
a bigger public.
Bigger public, so I had much better treatment as a result. I think I was treated much more like a commercial piece of property, probably in a different way, because I was more saleable. I was more
listening to these tapes recently, and hearing the announcers when they announce on the radio.
I mean, the way they go on about me, and he's listening, to all this.
So your husband's waxing.
He's so proud of me. Well, he plays the piano. He's a wonderful musician himself.
Oh.
So he was brought up with musicians in his family. So he's also.
I have a brother who was faculty of Colby College. And he was the head of the music department for about 30
years. He's a pianist and a conductor himself. He comes from family musicians himself.
He's a composer and conductor.
So that's all he's always had is music all his life. So he loves the fact that, I knew him, I've known him.
Hindemith was godfather to one of his children.
Oh my God, that you're really...
So he comes from a musical family. But he loves the idea that, he loves it, because he was a fan of mine. I've known him for 30-some years,
Oh. And you're married, what,
just recently, my husband passed away in 1983. And he saw an article about me in the New York Times. Like you saw.
Yeah.
And he was looking for me, and he couldn't find me.
I had recently been widowed myself.
He was widowed himself.
In '84.
And he was living down the street here. And
you were neighbors.
We were neighbors, and we didn't know that we were neighbors. And of course, he found me, and he comes walking up the driveway one day, and I hadn't seen him since my mother passed away in '63. He'd come to my mother's funeral.
22 years ago.
And I hadn't seen him since then. He comes walking up the driveway, and I recognized him immediately, of course. And we began to talk and date, And then he left for Europe, and he was gone for a whole month. And he kept calling me from Europe. He traveled all over Europe, and he came back, and he proposed. And we got married in October of that year. And I never thought I'd ever get married again. Neither did he.
Well, you were living. This is
my home. I was living here.
And then we went back, and I went back.
He had a home in Manhattan.
I just came back from Europe and got married.
He had sold his
back to
house.
Europe.
Yeah, and we turned around and went right back to Europe again. And so we've had a lot of fun.
You get a lot of fan mail from people all over the country who still remember you?
I have a lot of people who remember me. I mean, I can even sometimes when I talk to phone operators or I'm called someplace, are you Vivian Della Chiesa? Oh, and then they think, well, you know.
About Walker.
And then I was even willed money. I was left money by two fans of mine, two women, mother and daughter. They left me a considerable sum of money. And
well, you must have
I was
touched them
yes,
deeply. They must have
they
listened to your shows.
They loved me from radio, and then they saw me on TV. Then when I had a television show, then they were there all the time at the television show in Cincinnati. When I went down there, they were an old family of Cincinnati. I mean, if you know Cincinnati, that you know it's very old money there and old
families and dynasties.
Yeah, dynasties. And so I didn't even realize that they left me in their will. And I received, I would say a considerable sum. I would say a good sum of money. And so, you know, I mean, I've had fans to this day. One of my students, who's a young singer, says, "You don't know how many people know you. When I tell them I study with you, they go, oh, how can you be studying with her?" You know, they think that I said, "Oh, come on." And I laugh. I think that's funny.
I can't get over, I mean, because, you know, those performances that I have those reviews of from 36, now that's 52 years ago.
Yeah.
And she looks like she's 50 years old.
She looks as though it's impossible. I mean, you don't look as though you could, even allowing for the fact that you were very young then. I mean,
yeah, I know.
You are so...
people cannot believe her age.
No. No, you're not. I mean, I know your age from this directory. Even if it's off a year or two, I mean, it's still in the ballpark.
Sure.
Incredible. And you opened up the voice there before. It still sounds...
Oh, I can still sing. I truly
absolutely.
Can. Oh, I
sang
absolutely
recently at a Christmas concert a year ago.
A year ago, I sang.
Then she performed in Dayton, Ohio last year. Also.
Akron, Ohio. I did a whole show for them for the Boys Town of Italy. I could still sing if I wanted to. I definitely could. I did the for Requiem not too long ago. But
last April, she was invited by the Huntington Arts Council to give a lecture. You know, she had an overflowing audience.
They said that they got so many requests. They said we could have filled it over twice, and I didn't.
Well,
even know.
You could have, look at all these people like Albanese and Novotny who are, basically telling their little repertory of stories and cashing in on, all their, and keeping like a second career going, rooted in the past, of course, on nostalgia.
Yes.
But I mean, you have as many interesting stories to tell. Most probably more because you weren't just in opera. You were.
That's right. See, that's why I feel that I had a much richer career because I didn't just sing opera. First of all, I wouldn't want to be just called an opera singer because to me that's putting you.
Limiting.
It's very limiting. Putting you in a box and you're pigeonholed then. And I don't think that I was ever that way. First of all, I have a very open mind to all kinds of music, to all kinds of everything. I mean, experiences, and I think that that's the only way. Maybe that's why I stay young.
Yeah.
Because I went to a nutrition place not too long ago to get vitamins. I was thinking, I'll have
Go to that.
And the women there said to me, "We saw how old you are. We want
shocked.
to know what your secret is." They're the ones that are giving me the nutrition.
Isn't that wonderful?
It's funny, and I said, I don't know. I says, I guess it's that I'm interested in everything. I keep very active. I'm still I'm active in my career as a person teaching, and if I weren't doing that, I'd do something else. I could design clothes too. I was given even a job as a designer of clothing if I wanted to. I could paint. I've done that. I could be an interior decorator. I mean, there's so many things that I could do, and that I enjoy everything. And what I think is the secret of the fact I think that I still look young is that I have enthusiasm for everything. Don't I?
Yeah.
I never have lost my enthusiasm for anybody gives me something. I mean, I've given people gifts and they go, "Oh, thank you." I've seen him give gifts and they go, "Oh, well, if somebody gives me something, I get very excited."
Yeah, because it's a gift.
Yeah, and and everything excites me. I mean, I can get excited. Like when we went to Moonstruck the other night, I kept saying, I just can't get over this movie. Oh, you know,
Yeah.
I was really so excited about
Into
the
it.
movie. I came out of there, I was flying.
When's the last time you went to the opera that you were excited? What did you see?
We went to see
Well,
two.
recently we went to the.
We saw the city
Turandot.
center. We saw Turandot
Yeah.
at the city center.
Who was that with Linda Kelm? This big girl?
No, she has another name. She has
Trem-
an Italian name.
Oh, Tremonita?
Yeah.
I'm not, yeah.
Tremont something.
Something, yeah,
something.
yeah,
She's
Italian
from
name.
Wisconsin or
Yeah.
Michigan or something. I didn't like her voice.
No.
Very, very screechy.
Yeah. No, because there's another gal who sings it at the City Opera called Linda Kelm, who apparently is the most I haven't heard her, but it's supposed to have quite a voice, but, 4x4,
Well, this
no
one was
figure at
pretty
all.
big too.
Yeah.
And then the one that sang "You" was pretty big too. She was enormous.
Is that Spacania?
No, she had of the two, she was the better singer. The Liu had more of well, at least she did some nice things with her voice.
Yeah.
But and the tenor was pretty good. He was a Russian.
Polysov.
Yeah, he was okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I wasn't too
I
wasn't too impressed.
Yeah.
It was it was credible. It was a creditable performance, but it wasn't really anything that right, Alfred?
Mhm.
But did you go to the Met at all?
We haven't been to the Met this year at all. I haven't seen anything.
Yeah,
The only thing we've seen is on television when we see the Turandot. We saw
Did you like the Turandot?
Eva Marton. Well, I thought that it was spectacular as far as
The production.
We went to see Les Miserables the other night.
The play, yeah. I saw it in London. Yeah.
The Turandot was Eva Marton was. She's got a great big voice, but it doesn't do anything to me. Her voice.
Yeah.
At least
The color isn't it?
No, it doesn't do anything. And Domingo was very good in the first act in the beginning, and then when he sang the aria,
Nessun Dorma.
Nessun Dorma, something must have happened to the sound of the microphone, because he sang and then all of a sudden the voice disappeared.
I was at the performance.
What happened to him there?
He actually couldn't reach.
He couldn't reach.
He couldn't get any lift on the voice in those notes, and it was very small and tight.
That's what I thought.
And I think what they did for the broadcast, they fixed it up a little. But as you say, you picked it up.
Yeah,
I picked it up, and I said, "What happened to him?" I said, "Because he sounded so good in the beginning, and then all of a sudden something was."
They did something.
Does he? I don't think he has a big voice. Does he?
It's not a huge voice,
No.
and it certainly doesn't have any lift on it. It's it's a beautifully colored voice, but it has a ceiling on it.
It doesn't have the overtone.
Did you
Is that what
see
you
him
mean?
in the movie?
Like Pavarotti has his voice
Yeah.
shimmers.
Yeah.
It shimmers like.
It has the gleam. Well, it has the easier top.
Yeah, the easier. But I said I have never heard Domingo in person, and I said I'll bet he doesn't have a big voice like Jan Pierce,
No,
Jan Pierce was a fool, or people thought he had a big voice. He did really voice. You remember hearing him in?
Yeah.
He didn't have a big voice.
Small, dry voice.
Dry.
Tucker had a big voice.
Yes, he did. He
And
had
it
a
got
big
bigger as years went on.
His first concert that he ever did, in public after he gave up being a rabbi, a cantor, rather, was with me. And I was with Mike DePace and Jan Pierce. We had just finished the Celanese broadcast. Remember Jean Tennyson?
Yeah,
She was
I
married
love
to,
May, yeah.
she's married to Dreyfus, the one that owned Celanese. And Jean had this broadcast on CBS. And she used to get sick periodically, couldn't sing or something was wrong, I don't know. So Jan and I had just finished doing excerpts from Carmen. And Mike DePace was with us, and we called Richard Tucker that night in Colby. This is an absolute true story. And he says, "Do you have a nickel?" At that time it was a nickel.
Yeah.
And told him that he had just been signed by the Met. And so he was absolutely stunned, Then he did a concert in Chicago with me. We did several concerts. Grand Park with Paul Brysock. And we transposed the duet from La Boheme down tone.
Tone.
Because he didn't want to sing the high notes. And when he was singing with me, we did something at the Jewish temple there too. We did a beautiful concert. And he was telling me, he says, when you reach your 40s, he was already in his 40s. He said, the high notes go. He was worrying about his high notes then. And I thought to myself, he's just starting his career as a singer, And I didn't like that kind of talk to begin with, because I don't like to hear that kind of talk. I find it depressing.
Oh, you mean the worrying about the end of the worrying about the end?
He was already worrying about his voice then, and he hadn't even started his career. And I thought, gee, that seems strange to me. And later on, he became such a big name and such a great singer for them all there that he must have gotten more confidence in himself as time went on, because he wasn't, at that time, he was scared to death. I remember that. It was...
but, you know, Pierce and Tucker, although they were related, you know, there was no...
animosity.
Yeah.
Well, there was a jealousy there.
Yeah.
Rivalry.
Yeah. It comes out in the book, you know, Tucker's biography, and it's sort of like an authorized biography. You know, I think Mrs. Tucker hired somebody to, you know, write sort of the a glowing account, you know, factual, but, you know, but only good stuff. But what comes out about Pierce is that, you can tell in the book they don't really want to talk about it, but they have to, because, you know, people want to know what exactly happened, and that's what comes out of jealousy.
Oh, very much so.
But the jealousy seems to be Pierce being jealous of Tucker.
Of him,
yeah.
I think so too.
That's what comes out, at least in Tucker's book. Now, in Pierce's book, he says, I won't even talk about it.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of jealousy between them. Right. We
Jan-
saw Alice
Alice
the other night, Jan's wife, at this thing for Toscanini, and and of course she you know, they couldn't really. It was funny because they couldn't find me 3 years ago when they gave this big dinner starting the Toscanini ball rolling all over again, you know. She said, and I said, she said, I remember a friend of mine went to the affair, and she wasn't even.
And they send you a Christmas card every
And they
year.
sent me a Christmas card. She said, "Well, we know we couldn't find you." She says to
She
bring
has
you
her
into
address
the
next
to the. You know, in fact, I didn't get my picture in that because somebody else pushed himself in
Did
the
you
way.
see that?
But the picture in Opera News, several friends of mine, you know, I told them that I, you know, just located you, and they said, that picture, my gosh, she's stunning. They couldn't believe.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what infuriated me was that night at this townhouse, a beautiful townhouse in 71st Street.
What a house.
This guy who publishes Ovation.
Yeah.
And here they have Vivian and Rose Bampton and Leach Albanese, Robert Merrill,
Novotna.
and Novotna.
She was
And
very nice.
they're standing there, and each one is giving, they make, you know, comments about their experiences with Toscanini, and she stole the show.
Well, I tell you, this man Rosen, who I spoke to, you know, I mentioned to him why I wanted, you know, what the basis of why I wanted to find you, and he said, you know, of all the people there, this is off the record, he said she was the most fascinating.
Right.
She was the life of the party.
Absolutely. And they taking pictures, and they have everybody except her in the picture.
Well, you see, because
I was
not
furious.
I told you.
I tell you, I was
He
so
is
furious.
so angry because one of them came in on the way, and I said, "Oh, who needs this? If they don't ask me to come up and pose for stuff like that, I really don't care, you know." But they were all pushing themselves in, and one of them there who really sang comprimario roles with him, talking about the maestro.
Gabor Corelli or somebody.
Yeah. He says, "Oh, I'm a teacher. I've been with the Manhattan School of Music for 44 years." Manhattan School. He was a comprimario, and I said, "Oh yeah." He said, "So I sang Traviata with you. You remember when that?" I didn't even remember. Then I suddenly remembered, because my memory. I told you, when it comes to the past, I have to search my memory.
Well, you know, when I was going through some of the those dates that I found for you, I mean, you sang with Pinza, you sang with Tibbet, you sang with Martinelli, you sang with Raiza, you sang with
Marjorie Lawrence.
So many people, I can't think of all of them. And
Tito Schipa.
yes, Skiba in the Elixir, your second performance.
God, what a singer he was.
Now that was 1936.
Mhm.
He'd already been singing 25 years, and
She's standing here, and this guy comes in. What's his name?
Gabor Corelli.
He's
nothing.
What is he?
A comprimario.
Comprimario. And he muscles in, and she's standing here. She's not in the picture. I was really furious over this.
Yeah, well.
This way I'll be a surprise.
And she was the head of the show. Did you saw this?
Yeah, well, that's how that's what started me on my little rediscovery. You sang an Otello with Martinelli and Tibbet. I found it in Chicago.
See, what happened was Tibbet had just come back he had lost his voice,
Yeah.
And the year I sang it with him, it was his comeback, and it wasn't the same Tibbet that I remembered, because he was a great, you remember him.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But he had lost his voice. And
Well, he had so many problems in his life.
his liquor problems, and I don't know what other problems he had, so
Well,
mostly drinking.
Well, yeah,
wasn't
well,
it?
that's what.
Mostly drinking.
Yeah, related to that.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of them had that problem, didn't they? Like Björling had that problem, too.
Yeah. Did you sing with Björling?
No, I sang with Bob Weedy, though. Bob and Jan and I did our first Tosca together in Trenton with Gaetano Merola conducting. That was our first Tosca, all of us.
Yeah.
We had never sung the role before.
Let me just find, I brought some notes with me. I listened to some of your things that I was able to come up with.
Jan Pierce had a wonderful sense of humor. He was a very funny man.
Let's see, I found your first performance was with the Bohème with Toccacian and Rimini. The Elixir with Skipa, Rimini, and...
Did you find the reviews too? I'd love to
Trevisan.
find those.
Well, I have...
Oh, you can do them some other time. You're going to come back here.
Oh, sure. Oh, I hope so.
I've got to find stuff too. Jan.
One of the things I hope you can find somewhere in any form, a picture of yourself as Eudoxia.
I had a beautiful picture of myself once. I can't find it. You know, Musical Leader, which used to be a magazine, had one like that. It was the Musical Leader. Remember the Musical Leader?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Mrs. French?
Yeah, Florence French.
Florence French, you know, and she used to live near me, and I would drive her to the office. And she was British, you know, very British. She spoke like this, enunciated every word. And when I say enunciate, she spoke perfect English. Perfect English. And she published, I think it was in her magazine.
Then I'm going to look
Florence French. There must be. I'd love to have that picture myself because it was beautiful.
Okay, this is a review of that La Juive, because remember, I'm collecting this from the perspective of, you know, my Raiza stuff. It is pleasurable to single out the success score by Vivian Della Chiesa, the young American soprano who sang Princess Eudoxia, a role which she learned in 10 days, and in which she displayed histrionic ability heretofore unsuspected. Imbued with a voice of crystal-like purity, beautiful texture, and a fine carrying power, she surprised her most sanguine admirers with the fluency and authority with which she sang. She richly deserved the tumultuous applause bestowed upon her after her aria in the second act.
Oh, can you imagine that?
And then I found another review here. That was Musical Courier. This is in the Music News. This doesn't say too much, but...
I wish we could find the paper.
Vivian Della Chiesa, whom we have not heard often enough this season, sang the role of Princess Eudoxia. Hers is a lovely, fresh voice, and her artistry is growing. She is a definite personality on the stage and should do great things in the operatic world. But I do have a more... This is an actual newspaper review by Glenn Dillard Gunn.
Oh, yes.
And a little paragraph about you here. Miss Della Chiesa, whose operatic debut was one of the season's highlights, further endeared herself to the public with her account of the pleasing music assigned to the part of Eudoxia. In smoothness, warmth, and evenness of tone, in style and in ease of delivery, her song approached the ideal. I have never heard the part better sung.
Wow.
Now, do you remember?
He was a tough critic.
He was tough, and remember, La Juive, this is 1936, and they first did it in Chicago in 1923. Now, Edith Mason had done Eudoxia, so he's comparing you with Edith Mason. Another very famous one who did it there was, I don't know if her name means anything to you, Ide Norena.
Oh, yes.
Norena had done it, so
yes,
you in effect were being compared at least to
Muzio.
Rather to Mason and Norena.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I was
so
in good company.
I think you'd...
Oh, that's magnificent.
I'm going to make
I wish
copies
I
of
could
these.
find. Oh, I'd love to find Ledisi d'Amore too. When we stopped the show in the second act of Vittorio Trevisan and I doing.
How do you go about doing this? How did you research all this?
The amount of time I've spent in the libraries in the last 20 years, and the amount of Xeroxing of these pages. At one time, before Xerox, I had to write down in longhand everything. Now, of course, you find a page with something interesting, you take it in. You pay 30 cents, and they make a picture of it. So at least you don't have to do all that copying.
I'd love to get all those things too if I could find them. I was going to see if I could help you in other ways.
And of course, this is something I want you. This.
Oh yes. Now that to me, now you know that was one of the greatest honors that I ever received in my life, because that, of course, is the Lambs Club.
Yes.
And how that came about was I had been singing at the Waldorf when I was doing my supper club act, and then I did a show for the Variety, you know, the Variety,
the newspaper.
no, Variety clubs.
Oh, Variety club.
And they did the Spring Gamble was done in the Waldorf in the Grand Ballroom, and Steve Allen was the MC. Let me tell you, I had an arrangement of scarlet ribbons, like you cannot believe, that sang in my chest voice, then went up to my high voice, because Bobby Kroll had written all my arrangements. I had big arrangements. I brought the house down. When I tell you, know, these are all people in show business, remember. And when you
Your
get
peers.
a group of your peers, they're the best audience, I always find, because
They know.
They know, and they applaud. But I used to work in Vegas when I would work at night. Maybe the third show we'd go to see someone else. We were always the best audience because, you know, you have an empathy for the people on stage. You know how tough it is to work.
You're like a fraternity, or
exactly. We're all sorry. Well, anyway, Billy Gaxton was the shepherd of the lambs. He was the shepherd of the lambs, and so I was working in Las Vegas, and he sends me a telegram saying that they wanted to honor me. We had never honored a woman in the Lambs. You would be the first woman that we would honor. And my return telegram, here again, a lack of confidence, I says, you mustn't mean me, you must mean Helen Hayes or somebody like that, because I can't see myself, you know, the Lambs is going to honor me. I mean, there's so many great women performers, and, you know, I'm talking about not opera, I'm talking about showbiz.
Showbiz, yeah.
Showbiz.
The bigger sense.
And they said, no, we mean you. So when I came back and they did this show, they did it up in the Moore Theater, you know, their Lambs Club Theater. This Reverend Moore has bought it now.
Yeah.
The Lambs Club Theater. Do you remember the Lambs building, entire building? Well, you ought to go in there sometimes. They've got a theater. The best people from Broadway all donate their services to the Gambles, all the Gambles they do. I had a stage, I did a show for them then, in other words, and they had lighting on me. I mean, you know, it was like I had the creme of the creme of the people working there, and they gave this big party for me. And of course, Dorothy Fields was there, Gwen Verdon was there. She was the next one they honored. Yeah. Then Carol Channing came next. Well, anyway, I was so honored that all these people, directors, producers, writers, everybody were there. I mean, this to me has been one of the greatest things that's ever happened. Russell Patterson did the painting of me, and it's a big painting. They have it hanging in there. It's, you know, with all the greats.
With the greats.
And to me, I mean, I felt that and singing with Toscanini, I think, and making my debut, and of course singing a concert.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. How did Toscanini and you ever
come together?
Yeah, what was he heard you on the radio? Or?
He heard me sing when I first came to New York. I came to New York in 1938, and I had to get out of a contract with a personal manager, and I was under contract to NBC. Sid Strotz was my boss, who later became president of NBC New York. Niles Trammell was the president for a long time, and Sid was his vice president. He was in Chicago. Niles was in Chicago, came to New York, he became the boss, and Sid later became the boss. Well, Sid was my mentor at NBC. He thought I was the greatest, you know. I mean, I had more shows that I could have done that I turned down because my mother always wanted to go home, you know, and I was always with my mother. So